This is Dr. Jess, and welcome to the third installment of Ask Me Anything About Anything. In line with what we were discussing at first, we're going to start from the ground on up, and this week I'm going to reveal why you won't heal. Maybe your cells are leaky. This is going to be a short treatise on the importance of cell membranes and leaky gut syndrome. So, have you ever wondered why infections that you may have, viral or bacterial, and you keep getting them, you keep getting antibiotics, and you keep getting them again, you keep getting antibiotics or whatever, and you still have them and they still come back? Why you're still sick? Well, maybe your cells themselves aren't up to par. Maybe they're not working well. Okay, let us take a minute and talk about the cell membrane itself. We all know that the cell membrane covers the cell, but it's a very functional, as a matter of fact, it's a critical portion of the cell's function. It keeps whatever's supposed to be inside the cell, and it keeps whatever's supposed to be outside the cell. Okay? It's got loads of mechanisms that transfer proteins and transfer nutrients in and out of the cell, but it also contains various receptors. These things that look like little Ys, okay, the letter Y, okay, are receptors. They're on the cell membranes. If we take a closer look, the cell membrane is what's called a phospholipid bilayer, which means that it's a lipid or a fat. Okay, and these, don't worry about the heads and so forth, but notice the little letter Y's. Okay, there's really every information that goes along in your body, okay, goes along the cell membranes. It gets passed along. So if the cell membranes are leaky or not functional, it's going to interfere with everything. And nothing happens without a patent cell membrane. No matter where you go in the world, they all say the same thing. All the world agrees that no healing can take place without a patent cell membrane. Well, obviously the cell membranes are everywhere because we've got 30 trillion cells in our bodies. But it's super important because dysfunction or leakiness of the cell membranes are going to cause different kinds of symptoms. So if there's leakiness in the blood-brain barrier, viruses are going to get in, bacteria is going to get in, toxins won't be able to get out, toxins may stay there, and so forth. In the neurological cells, in the neurons, you may get seizures, you may get mood changes, you may get all kinds of neuropsychiatric complaints. In the gut, you can get leaky gut syndrome, which leads to immune dysregulation. In the mitochondrial cell membranes, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's going to interfere and possibly lower the amount of energy production. Okay, so this is where fatigue comes from and the inability to heal. In the nerve cells, okay, if you look at the picture, the blue thing around the cells, which is called the neurolemma or the myelin sheath, okay, that's what protects the cells and allows for rapid uh, nerve transmission. Okay, the cell itself has cell membrane, and the myelin sheath is surrounded by a cell membrane. In your mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of your cell, it's actually got two membranes. Okay, an inner and an outer. So why is this important? Well, without getting overly technical, when the products of glycolysis and Krebs and stuff like that, which are called electron donors, go into this particular process, the enzymes take the hydrogen at the end, tear it apart, put the protons into the little sac that's delineated by the outer and inner cell membrane and puts the electrons through this blue line here. When it gets to the end, when those electrons in the blue line are actually going to produce your energy, which is ATP, this little thing is called ATP synthase, and it spins. What makes it spin are the protons going through, sort of like a grist mill. The water would move the wheel, and the wheel would turn whatever it is that turned in there to create whatever. Okay, this is exactly what happens in your body. So if the inner mitochondrial membrane is leaky, these high energy protons leak out, and ATP synthase slows down, and you don't get as much ATP or any at all. So it's really important to have patent cell membranes. So does anybody see the problem that if you have leaky cell membranes, what the problems are going to be? Nothing will work. Okay, nothing will work. It'll work, but it won't work at the efficiency you're looking at. Okay, so nothing will work. Not the nervous system, not the immune system, not the endocrine system, not the mitochondria, not the detox system. No nothing, no how. Okay, this is just not going to work. And if you remember that character for The Wizard of Oz, that's what he said to Dorothy about seeing the wizard. So let's talk a little bit about leaky gut syndrome. Okay, uh, the graphic here, it doesn't have any super meaning. It's just he was so cute, I had to put him up here. Okay, just picture this guy, with a bunch of little kids, and mom asks where they go, and he's just picking up his ear saying they went that way. Let's look at a normal gut. Okay, let me give you some orientation. In this upper area here is the gut lumen, which is the inside of the gut where you eat and everything goes through. And the lamina propria is called the basement membrane. That's where all the immune and other actions take place. And your gut protects you, your cells protect you by being all together like this. Okay, and they have things called tight junctions, so the cells stick together really, really, really tight. And these things like bacteria, dietary peptides, in other words, antigens, can't get in. Okay, we have these cool things called dendritic cells. They look like stars that every once in a while put their little whatever through. I don't know how they get through the tight junctions, but they do, and they kind of sample the outside to see if there's any bad guys in there. And then if there are, they develop either memory cells or killer cells just in case they get through. It's a really wonderful mechanism, and it's really extensive. But on the top, by the way, on the top there's a mucus layer, which you're seeing here, we'll call villi, those little fingers that come up. And the purpose of them is they increase surface area. Okay, so you can absorb better. So, how does leaky gut syndrome happen? Well, on the left-hand side of this particular graphic, you see alcohol, food additives, environmental toxins, pesticides in foods, food allergens, medications, drugs. They can all lead to dysbiosis and all kinds of oxidative stress, bacterial overgrowth, fungal overgrowth, parasites, infections, irritable bowel, and so forth and so on and so on. Okay, it leads, and also this can overload your liver detoxification systems. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to treat this, but it's a real entity. About 25 years ago, leaky gut was, oh, that doesn't exist. Okay, well, guess what? It does exist. And what it does is really important. And this is what you need to know, okay? All these different bad guys up here, infections, cytokine, neurotransmitters, zugs, and xenobiotics, yada yada yada, they injure the cell itself, the gut cells. And when those cells are injured, they start to separate. And then these guys can get in, and the immune system starts acting on them. And the first thing you're going to see is food allergies and intolerance. So that's the tendency towards being reactive to different foods. This creates inflammation, and it keeps going and going and getting bigger and bigger. So you begin to see immune system abnormalities. Okay, and as it continues, you may see autoimmunity. You see, autoimmune conditions are caused by chronic inflammation of whatever sort. So that's why you don't see them early in life. Okay, and they kind of show up later. And that's the reason they show up later, because something is setting off the pathway that leads to the autoimmune problem. I know it sounds pretty simplistic, but it happens to be true. And if this continues, you can get things called dysautonomias, things like POTS or anything that affects your autonomic nervous system, okay? And it can influence the blood-brain barrier, cause neuroautoimmunity, and all kinds of nastiness. And it all comes down to leaky gut. So let me reiterate, and this bears repeating because this is how important this is. You get a disruption of the gut lining from whatever, okay? You start getting multiple food intolerances, okay, as a result of leaky gut and gut inflammation. The leaky gut causes nutrients and waste to leak from the gut, worsens improper absorption, more antibodies are produced, more inflammation gets produced. There's improper absorption, and there's chronic and ongoing and worsening inflammation. And remember from our last talk, chronic inflammation is the base of most diseases. I need you to understand that because we have this tendency to treat things from the outside. I've got a thyroid problem. I've got, Hashimoto's. I've got this. I've got that. Well, we all talk about that, and maybe you treat that. But the reason these things don't go away is because nobody's thinking about where it starts. And by the way, if you go after root cause and when it's chronic and you don't treat from both sides, or you don't treat the outside with what has been done to the body, if you don't treat both, the person doesn't get better. And the problem is that most practitioners treat at one end or the other. And that's why people tend to get more chronic, and very frustrated because they simply don't know what's going on. So leaky gut has caused a rise in health issues. And, we could go into this extensively, but I promise to keep this to 10, maybe 15 minutes, and I'm already at the 10-minute mark, so I'll start talking very fast. Okay. But there's a rise in cardiovascular issues, stomach issues, diabetes, metabolic disorders, adrenal fatigue. But the number one target for leaky gut syndrome is the central nervous system. Okay, and can be the initiation of depression, anxiety, migraines, addictions, cravings, behavioral issues, PMS, ADD, ADHD, and a whole mess of other things. But there's good news. So these conditions can be fixed. Okay, and it's the one area of healthcare that is usually ignored. Okay, and is very important. And guess what? It's really simple to fix. And I think that's the problem. We're all looking for this sexy, complex protocol. Guess what? We forget the simple stuff. And if anybody remembers what Occam's razor is, it's the simplest explanation is usually one. So what do you need? Digestive enzymes. You need to reestablish the mucus layer. You need to help the cells heal. You need to repair the leaky cells. In other words, give the body phospholipids so they can, naturally heal the cell membranes and reestablish the microbiome with proper probiotics. And here's the thing: you need all of these things, not just some. And I look at different products. I review lots of products sometimes. And guess what? I see things being done partially. Yet they say this fixes leaky gut. Okay, guess what? If you're not attending to these areas, you're never going to fix a leaky gut. This is a shameless plug for my book, Leaky Gut, Leaky Cells, Leaky Brain, which explains all this stuff very, very clearly. And it is, people tell me it's well written. It's also been translated into Japanese. It's available on Amazon worldwide, on Kindle, and on Audible. So, you need phospholipids. Here's some forms of phospholipids. I'm showing you products as examples, not specifically recommending them. I just want to show. I just kind of picked them out on Amazon. Okay, a lecithin contains phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylethanolamine, and phosphatidylinositol. You impressed that I can pronounce big words? And you put that into the body, and it gets absorbed, and the body forms phospholipids. And of course, if you're really bad off and you need the phospholipid in the liposomal form, okay, there's liposomal phospholipids. Lipids are necessary for lots of reasons. As a matter of fact, animal fats are the best. I know sacrilege, and small amounts of arachidonic acid are necessary. I know more sacrilege, and the vegans are going to be after me. Some of the sources of good lipids are organic ghee, organic butter, organic lard, and for arachidonic acid, which again you don't need a lot of because the arachidonic acid has been demonized. Okay, but you do need it to reestablish your cells. Okay, things protein from fish, fowl, beef, lamb, yak, whatever. Reestablishing the mucus layer can be done with things like fructooligosaccharides, xylitol-oligosaccharides, and galacto-oligosaccharides, and things like slippery elm. Okay, now puts out something called prebiotic bifido boost, which is the XOS powder, and another product combines the XOS and GOS in these chewable lozenges. So it's very easy to do, and it's very necessary in a protocol to fix leaky gut. The butyrate that you need, okay, it can be obtained vegan, okay, but look for a tributyrin. There's lots of butyrates out there. They get digested very quickly. The tributyrin is a butyrate that is connected to a triglyceride. Okay? And what happens there is that it gets distributed throughout the entire gut. And that's a good thing. My recommendation for probiotics is a spore-based probiotic. Okay, this is just one example. They, in my opinion, they root better, and it's a nice, reestablishing the microbiome with a nice set of probiotics. So in conclusion, cell membrane integrity is an integral part of life's function. Nothing will heal without patent cell membranes. Cell membrane integrity is relatively easy to reestablish, but for some reason is generally ignored. Leaky gut syndrome creates or continues chronic inflammation, which is usually ignored and is easy to treat. So, thank you for listening. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Tell your friends, because each week I'm coming out with great information on health and how to treat different conditions and so forth. If you want to know if I can help you, go ahead and go to my website and book a free 30-minute get acquainted session. Or if you have questions or suggestions, email me at jess@drjessarmine.com. And why would somebody want to treat with me? Okay. Well, frankly, I'm a world-class practitioner. I have 5 decades of eclectic healthcare experience. I've been an EMT paramedic. I've been a nurse. I've been an officer in the military. I've been a doctor. Okay. I've got a lot of experience. And we usually work with specialists who only consider things in the area of their expertise, where I'll look at everything. A specialist will dictate to you, whereas I'll make you a partner in your healing. I'll explain things and you'll be part of your healing journey. Specialists explain things with a lot of scientific babble, and as you can tell, I can pronounce the big words, but it's not important that you know the big words because I explain them right away, right after I talk. Okay, right after I mention the word, as a matter of fact. Okay, and frankly, some practitioners want you to get an enormous amount of expensive tests, whereas I'll review everything you have, and if any additional tests are necessary, I'll let you know about it. We'll discuss it and go on from there. You'll be a partner in your healing, not I won't dictate to you. So all you have to really ask yourself is, how would you rather be treated? And as always, if nobody told you they love you today, remember, Dr. Jess does. See you next week. Take care.